The rain hammered against the windows of our cozy Victorian home in Portland, Oregon, mirroring the storm brewing inside me. My name is Silas, and until a few weeks ago I thought I had it all: a loving wife, a comfortable life, and a fulfilling career as a landscape architect. I was 46, and Elara, my wife of 15 years, was the anchor in my carefully constructed world. It started subtly. Elara, who worked as a museum curator, began coming home later and later. "Just a new exhibit, Silas," she'd say, her eyes avoiding mine. "It's all hands on deck." I didn't suspect anything at first. Elara was dedicated to her work, and I always admired her passion. Then came the phone calls. Whispered conversations quickly ended when I entered the room. "Wrong number," she'd claim, a blush creeping up her neck. My gut started churning. I hated that feeling, that prickle of unease that whispered, "Something isn't right." I tried to dismiss it. Maybe I was just being paranoid. 15 years is a long time. Maybe we were just drifting apart. But the feeling persisted, growing stronger with each passing day. I started paying closer attention, noticing the little things I'd previously overlooked. The way she'd flinch when I touched her, the way her eyes seemed to glaze over when I spoke, the new perfume I didn't recognize. The final straw came on a Saturday. Elara told me she had to go to a conference in Seattle for the weekend. "It's really important, Silas," she said, her voice a little too high-pitched. "I have to be there." I offered to drive her to the airport, but she declined, saying a colleague was picking her up. That night I couldn't sleep. The house felt empty and cold without her. I tossed and turned for hours, my mind racing. Finally, around 3 a.m., I gave up. I went downstairs and made myself a cup of tea, hoping to calm my nerves. As I sat at the kitchen table, staring out at the rain-soaked garden, I noticed Elara's laptop sitting on the counter. She rarely left it out, usually keeping it locked away in her study. A sudden, overwhelming urge washed over me. I knew I shouldn't, but I couldn't resist. I had to know. I opened the laptop and waited for it to boot up. Elara wasn't the most tech-savvy person, so I figured I had a chance to find something without her knowing. I started with her email. I knew her password, our anniversary date. I typed it in, my heart pounding in my chest. The inbox was full of work-related emails, just as I expected. I scrolled through them, looking for anything suspicious. Nothing. Then I clicked on the sent folder, and there it was. An email to a man named Jasper with the subject line, "Can't wait to see you." My hands started shaking as I opened the email. The words blurred before my eyes. It was a love letter, filled with intimate details and longing. "This weekend can't come soon enough," she wrote. "I'm counting down the minutes until I'm in your arms." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. My breath caught in my throat. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. Jasper. Who the hell was Jasper? I scrolled through the rest of the emails, each one a dagger twisting in my heart. They had been seeing each other for months. Secret rendezvous, stolen moments, lies upon lies. The conference in Seattle was a lie. Everything was a lie. Rage, hot and blinding, surged through me. I wanted to scream, to break things, to lash out at someone, anyone. But beneath the anger, a deep, agonizing pain began to spread through my chest. The pain of betrayal. The pain of losing the woman I loved. The pain of realizing that everything I thought was real was nothing but a carefully constructed facade. I spent the rest of the night in a daze, rereading the emails, trying to make sense of it all. Who was this Jasper? What did he mean to Elara? And why? Why would she do this to me? I had always been a good husband. I had always supported her dreams, loved her unconditionally. What had I done to deserve this? By morning, the rage had subsided, replaced by a cold, calculating determination. I wouldn't let her get away with this. I wouldn't let her destroy my life without a fight. I decided to confront her. I needed answers. I needed to know the truth, no matter how painful it might be. Elara arrived home late Sunday evening, looking tired but radiant. "How was the conference?" I asked, my voice carefully neutral. "Oh, it was fine," she said, avoiding my gaze. "Lots of presentations, lots of networking. You know how it is." "Really?" I said, my voice hardening. "Because I know you weren't at a conference." Elara, her eyes widened in alarm. "What are you talking about?" "I read your emails," I said, my voice trembling with anger. "I know about Jasper. I know about everything." Her face crumpled. She started to cry. "Silas, I can explain," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "Explain what?" "Explain how you could betray me like this. Explain how you could lie to my face for months. Explain how you could throw away 15 years of marriage for some sum. I couldn't even bring myself to say the word affair. She sank to the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. I'm so sorry, Silas, she said. I never meant for this to happen, but it did happen, Elara, I said, my voice cold and hard. And now it's over. She looked up at me, her eyes filled with desperation. Please, Silas, don't do this. I still love you. I can fix this. No, Elara, I said. You can't. You broke something that can't be fixed. You destroyed our marriage, and I can never forgive you. I walked out of the house that night, leaving Elara sobbing on the floor. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I couldn't stay there. I needed to escape the lies, the betrayal, the pain. I needed to start over. I spent the next few weeks living in a small apartment downtown, trying to piece my life back together. The divorce was messy and painful, but I was determined to get through it. I focused on my work, throwing myself into new projects, trying to forget about Elara and Jasper. One day, a private investigator named Benedict called me. He said he had some information about Jasper that I might be interested in. I was hesitant at first. I didn't want to dwell on the past. But Benedict convinced me that it was important, that Jasper was not who he seemed to be. I met Benedict at a coffee shop downtown. He was a gruff, no-nonsense kind of guy, but I could tell he was good at his job. He laid out a file on the table filled with documents and photographs. Jasper Thorne, Benedict said. Real name Albin Cherney. He's a con artist. He targets wealthy women, seduces them, and then bleeds them dry. My blood ran cold. Elara had been conned. She had been manipulated by a professional liar. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. He's done this before, Benedict continued. He's got a string of victims all over the country. He's currently wanted by the police in several states for fraud and embezzlement. I felt a strange mix of emotions, anger, relief, and a twisted sense of satisfaction. Elara had cheated on me, but she had also been a victim. She had been played by a master manipulator. I asked Benedict to give me everything he had on Albin Cherney. I wanted to know everything about him, his methods, his past. I wanted to make sure he never hurt anyone again. I spent the next few weeks working with Benedict, gathering evidence and building a case against Albin Cherney. We contacted the police in the various states where he was wanted, providing them with the information we had gathered. Finally, they caught him. Albin Cherney was arrested and charged with multiple counts of fraud, embezzlement, and grand theft. He was facing a long prison sentence. I felt a sense of closure, knowing that he would finally be held accountable for his actions. As for Elara, she was devastated. She had lost everything, her marriage, her reputation, and her savings. Albin Cherney had drained her bank accounts, leaving her with nothing. She reached out to me, begging for forgiveness, but I couldn't give it to her. The trust was gone. The love was gone. I moved on with my life, focusing on my work and my friends. I started dating again, cautiously, learning to trust again. It wasn't easy, but I was determined to find happiness. I knew I deserved it. One sunny afternoon, a few years later, I was working in my garden when I saw Elara walking down the street. She looked thin and tired, her eyes filled with a deep sadness. She stopped in front of my house, hesitating for a moment before walking up the driveway. Silas, she said, her voice barely audible. I need your help. I listened as she told me her story. After Albin Cherney was arrested, she had fallen into a deep depression. She had lost her job, her friends, and her sense of self-worth. She had been living on the streets, struggling to survive. I know I don't deserve it, she said, tears streaming down her face. But I don't know where else to turn. I'm desperate. I looked at her, really looked at her for the first time in years. I saw the pain in her eyes, the desperation in her voice. I saw the woman I had once loved, broken and lost. I knew I couldn't forgive her for what she had done, but I also knew that I couldn't turn my back on someone in need. I offered her a place to stay, a warm meal, and a chance to get back on her feet. It wasn't easy. There were moments when I regretted my decision, when the old anger and resentment resurfaced. But I persevered, reminding myself that everyone deserves a second chance. Elara worked hard to rebuild her life. She found a job, started therapy, and slowly began to heal. She never asked for my forgiveness, but she showed me through her actions that she was truly sorry for what she had done. In the end, we didn't get back together. The damage was too deep, but we did find a way to be friends. We learned to forgive each other, to let go of the past, and to move forward with our lives. Looking back, I realized that Elara's betrayal was the most painful experience of my life, but it was also a catalyst for change. It forced me to confront my own vulnerabilities, to learn to trust my instincts, and to appreciate the true meaning of love and forgiveness. And I learned that sometimes, the greatest act of revenge is simply moving on and finding happiness despite the pain.